Hello, I am happy to bring today to the project of the Wise Sages of the Centers for Spiritual Living. I would like to introduce to you Rev Dr Moira Foxe, and she is the Senior Minister of the Redondo Beach, California Center for Spiritual Living. Moira, I would like to invite you to tell us about your life and we'd like to become acquainted with you and what has taken place and how you found science in mind. So just tell us and share with us about yourself.
Well, it's lovely to be with you today, good doctor. I mean, it's always a joy to talk to people who have been in this teaching for just so long and have so imbibed it as you have. So yes, I will endeavor to share with you a little bit of my journey thus far. I feel really and truly that I've lived several lifetimes in this one. But at the very early age of about 4 years of age, I knew I wanted to be a nun. That's what I wanted to be. I grew up in Ireland. I was born in Dublin. And I went through, of course, Catholic high school and very Catholic background. But the home I grew up in was pretty liberal insofar as, you know, it was not kind of a strict setting at all by any manner or means, but very spiritual home. And so anyway, at 4, I had this idea. I knew I wanted to be a nun because in Ireland, you always have a priest in the family and a nun in the family at least, and cousins and so on. And my aunt, who was out here in San Antonio, Texas, she was a nun there, and the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word sent me a little picture of St. Margaret Mary. And on that picture, there was a picture of St. Margaret Mary and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And coming from his heart was this beam of light hitting her right in the third eye. And I remember even then thinking, well, I don't know what that is, but I'd like a little bit of it. So from there on in, that was my quest, to get a little bit of that light. And anyway, the time came and I entered the convent and I was heading out to India. And by the time it came to be my turn to be sent out on the missions, they decided, no, they're not going to send us to India. They were going to they're opening up new missionary centers in California, of all places. And I said, no, I'm not going to California. I never want to go to California. I want to go to India. I want to be like Mother Teresa. I want to take care of the poor. And so because that was going to be the way we were going, I changed over into another order, a missionary order, just got transferred. And then I was on my way to New Guinea, which was great. That was fine. And then they said, no, we're not sending anybody overseas because you good people in England need to get your act together and not create a disturbance within the community, because we were endeavoring to be nuns in the modern world, as we were asked to do after Vatican II. So there was a great uprising in the community, and half of the English province left, and I was the last one standing, and eventually I left too, because I just felt I had to leave. If I really wanted to take my calling seriously, I couldn't do it within that spiritual community. So between the jigs and the reels, they gave me a leave of absence to go to college. They didn't want me to go to college, and I'd received double scholarships for it. And I said, I'm going one way or another. And so then they decided, okay, you may have leave of absence, and then when you finish college, come back. Well, I never went back, so I guess I'm a nun on the run. I don't know. So teaching, I always was going to be a teaching nun. So I went into teaching high school, mostly seniors in high school, and my studies were all in religious studies and theology, and it was a double degree at that time. So I did education and spiritual studies. So we did ethics and morality and scripture, and you name it, we did world religions and so on. It always fascinated me because this thing called God fascinated me. It was such a thing because, as a children going to school, God was presented to us as this beautiful, wonderful, all-loving God. And the next minute, God was sending us straight to hell for misbehaving and so on. So I never believed that, because I knew that God, if God was love, could not do that. because even as a child, I had a sense that even the worst possible parent wouldn't want those torturous things happening to their children.
Mm-hmm.
So I was teaching, and then very quickly became head of the religious studies department with the Ursuline convent in Wimbledon. And I in the convent, I had friends who left at the same time as I left, and one of them came over here to California. She wanted to study primal therapy, and Jane, being Jane, could only do it under Yanov himself. So out she came to study primal therapy, and after 6 months of primal scream, she'd had enough. But anyway, that's how I was introduced to California. And every now and again, I would come out here on vacation. And on one vacation, the lady in the apartment downstairs said, you know what, in our conversations that we've been having, I think you would enjoy this tape. Why don't you listen to it? I said, sure. And it was a tape of Dr. Bitzer's Sunday service.
Oh my goodness.
And yes, I listened to it, and as soon as I'd finished, I went downstairs, knocked on her door, and I said, I don't know who this man is. Is he still with us? And if he is, I would very much like to meet him, because he thinks exactly the way I think, but I never knew there was anybody around that thought that way. She said, sure, I'll take you there on Sunday. So we went to Dr. Bitzer's service that particular Sunday. And at that time, they used to sing, I don't know if you're familiar with it, My Eyes Are Open Now I See.
Yes,
You know. Well, when that started, just the tears began to roll down out of my eyes, and I thought, I'm home. I'm home. Somehow or another, I thought, I'm home. So I never missed a Sunday from there on in. It was October. I couldn't take a class. They'd started. As soon as I could take a class, I took a class. And they were in the second year. So
excuse me, Moira, about what year was this?
Oh, this would have been 1990.
Okay, thank you.
So I took, they were doing the beginning of a second year class. So I did that. Well, not knowing at that time that you could not take 2 classes consecutively, I took the year one with, over with David Walker. So I was doing first and second year, after 3 months concurrently. And so as soon as I finished those 2 classes, I wanted to go on and do a third class, but there was no third class. There was no third year class at that time. Dr. Bitzer wasn't going to teach a practitioner class, but I had no idea what a practitioner's class was. So I decided I'll try and get the nearest place to where I was living in the Fairfax area in Hollywood. And first place I called was Agape, because I didn't know if they were any different from us. And I just didn't like the person who was on the phone. The next place I called was Redondo. I didn't know how far away that was. Actually, Tom Johnson would have been the nearest one, but I didn't know that at the time. So I called Redondo, and the person on the phone was so lovely. She was a practitioner, and she was so wonderful. I signed up immediately for the class. So I started to take the practitioner's class down here, not because I wanted to be a practitioner, but I just wanted to further the education.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took my third year class there. And then when I'd finished that here, I wanted to go on and take the advanced class. And they said, well, there's no other class except for ministry. I said, well, I'll just take the class. I'm not interested in ministry, but I'll take the class. So I took the class and I went through all of that. And at the end of it, Dr. Frank invited me to become a staff minister, and I was kind of umming and ahhing about it. And then my friend Harriet Foster said, oh, for goodness sake, come on. I mean, you're just going to be volunteering and doing good work, that's all. I said, well, okay then. So I did. In the meantime, I had an opportunity to go on cable TV because an actor called, well, it doesn't matter who he was, but anyway, he was introduced to me and we talked, and he said, you know what, you have a good message. I'd like to put you on TV. He said, cable TV around here is very good, and I could put you on that. So I said, I don't think so. I know nothing about TV. And so I said, look, let's try it. So he booked a place for me in Santa Monica studio, and we did this thing called On Center with Moira Foxe, and it was metaphysics. And so I did the first taping. And when I came out, he was jumping up and down, clapping his hands, says, "Oh my God, I thought I'd have to do this 6 or 10 times with you, but you're a natural. I'm putting this in the can and I'm sending it out." So eventually I got to be out in about 15 different cable TV stations doing On Center with Moira Foxe, which was great. I had a great response to that. And then I began from that to teach a metaphysics class in Santa Monica and had about 50 students there. And then I was encouraged to maybe start my own work. And I thought, well, I could do it on the side. I mean, I'm still teaching, it's a full-time job, but I'll see. So with the help of Reverend Harriet, who encouraged me all the time, I'd found my place. I was ready to start my own work in Brentwood. I found the place where we were going to be. And I'd already given a couple of talks at the Bodhi Tree. And I was picking my board. And then Dr. Frank called me into the office one day and he said, "Okay, after much prayer and so on and so forth, how would you like to be the next pastor of the Redondo Beach Church of Religious Science?" And I fell off my chair. You know, I'm just into all of this. And he said, "Of course, it won't happen immediately." He said, I would like you to come on for 2 years and be the assistant minister so that you just, you know, get introduced to the community and so forth. And I said, "Well, Dr. Frank, I'm going to have to go away and pray about all of this." And because, you know, when your mind is set on one direction, and Brentwood was it at the time, he said, "Very well." So after 2 weeks, I came back and I said, "Well, okay then." So then I became the assistant minister for 2 years. And then in 2000, I stepped in when Dr. Frank retired and Dr. Anita. And so that's how I came to be here now. That was my journey. But in the meantime, I did do 7 years attending the City Yoga Ashram in Santa Monica and in London, because I wasn't living here when I was introduced to Baba Muktananda. So I have 7 years as in the convent and 7 years with the ashram. So I've had a wide experience in that regard. And then I took over here feeling really, oh my God, you know, what am I doing here kind of thing. And straight away, Dr. Frank, I didn't know when I was on vacation in August, he'd signed me up for a ministerial class. And at that time, I hadn't even taught a practitioner class. But then I've had a lot of practice in teaching spiritual things and so on over the decades. And so here I was, landed with a ministerial class, and he did help out a little bit. But so I got straight into it in the deep end and so on. And then as time went on, I got very, very engaged with the interfaith group down here. And I got to become a member of which I refused for so long because there was so much to do. But eventually, the lady who was in charge, who was the president of the group, hounded me so much. In the end, I said, "Oh, for goodness sake, all right already, I'll come." So I became very engaged with interfaith in the South Bay, and that particular council in Long Beach is one of the largest in the country, 30 board members. And then soon I was the president of the board. What did I know? You say yes when you're asked to do something, and then you're in it and you get on with it. And it does beautiful and wonderful work, and it's accomplished so much, and I've grown so much as a result of being part of that, because then I got to know my beautiful Baha'i friends and Muslim friends and Hindu friends and you name it, because we were all religions in that group and still are. And I'm still now, I'm a kind of an honorary member of the board because I love that work so much. But when I became, a regional support coordinator, I couldn't do everything. So I stepped back from my interfaith work, but I still go to the big things. And, we're very, very engaged in the community and interfaith. And we're very engaged in the outer community by supporting all of the good works in other churches. We don't want to repeat anything that's already happening, but we will support their work. Like, for example, every once a month, we do the cooking and supply the food and everything else for a big group of homeless people. And we do it down at the Methodist church close by. But every week we go, people just volunteer from the center and go and help with the food and so on. And wherever a need crosses our path, we endeavor to fill it. And we had the honor of being able to have a choir, sing at the Rose Bowl on one Easter Sunday morning. And I got to be the keynote speaker, one of them there. And that's always wondrous. And this all happens because of interfaith connections, So I get invited to be a keynote speaker at a lot of the interfaith gatherings and celebrations. And that's a beautiful thing. I also get invited to go and speak here on the day of prayer at the city council, stuff like that. We really believe that we have to be engaged in the outer community, in reach and outreach, in other words.
Yes.
So, and over the years, things change all the time, and we change with them in order to be able to meet the needs of the present day. So I've been very influenced by the teachers in my life, and I was absolutely blessed to have Dr. Bitzer as my first teacher. And then the Richelieus from there on in. And I enjoyed any time I was over there with David Walker too. It was great. So, and I loved Asilomar because I got to meet all of the great ones there in Asilomar. And, enjoy their way of perceiving the world through the eyes of Science of Mind and Spirit. So I feel very blessed in that. I feel very blessed that I've had the Asilomar experience for so many years. And I miss that. But, all I can say is if there is anything better than Science of Mind out there in the world, I'd be in it. But as yet, I haven't discovered it.
The principles of Science of Mind, do you think that people around the world are using them without really realizing? I mean, they're universal principles. So do you think that people are using these principles in ways, maybe not under the name of Science of Mind, but to create a better world for people? So what do you think is the future of Science of Mind itself?
Well, first part of your question, I believe that Science of Mind and Spirit has become status quo now, and that it's across the board now. If you listen to so many, especially in the Christian churches, the language is almost verbatim sometimes when you're listening to it. And I think that that's the way that Science of Mind and Spirit is going to spread its wings in our world. It may not necessarily be as a huge, big organization, but certainly its influence will be felt. And I believe it will be felt because it makes pure common sense above all else. These are indeed universal principles. And what they're asking of each and every one of us is to be mature individuals. And I know that we've been focused on getting the millions out there into Science of Mind and Spirit, into our organization. But for me, I don't see it like that at all. I see that it may just be a quantum number of religious scientists in the world, which will be big enough and powerful enough and mighty enough and strong enough to spread that kind of rising energy that is universal. And because I have seen it now, not only in my own center, but in the centers that I have the privilege of visiting and so on and so forth, that it's really no more about numbers. It's not about quantity. It's always about quality. And that if for me, I find a healthy center, a healthy church center, that's all that matters. And they're thriving at whatever level they are. That's huge to me. I love that. And I believe that why wouldn't we be a quantum number rather than huge bazillions of people? Because the science of mind and spirit is putting the responsibility for life squarely upon our own shoulders. And not everybody is there yet. Enough of us, as far as getting all the big, huge numbers, are there yet. Because people I have seen come to Science of Mind and they get from it what they want to get from it, and then they go, and then they don't come back until they need something and to get something from it again, and then they come back. Then others will come because they're travelers. They like to travel all around, and you have those. And then there's the third group that comes because they value the community. They value the sense of community. Because now, as you know, with cyberspace and the internet and all the rest of it, everything is at our fingertips. We can get Science of Mind at our fingertips, and tons of it. But what we do have to offer people is a real sense of community, a place where you can come and feel safe above all else. And that's what I really stress, the safety factor. When people come, that they ought to feel warm and welcomed and safe and secure to be themselves, however themselves happen to be in any given moment. And so for me, it makes sense to me that we would be a quantum number group rather than huge, huge hordes of us out there, labeled religious scientists, because of the high teaching and the high demands of the high teaching. And if we want to live it at the deep level that is the only level to be lived if you want to self-realize to any degree, I think I'm not concerned about Science of Mind in the future. There'll always be Science of Mind. There'll always be religious scientists out there in some shape, make, or form. How the organization will look, however, is yet to be defined. It's yet to be defined.
We would like to hear what words of wisdom that you have for whoever is watching this tape.
Well, I think what I would have to say is, if we want the community to grow, the only way the community, whether it's, local or global, the only way that's going to grow is if I grow myself. And that the most important thing with what we have to offer people is the support of each one in their own spiritual growth and advancement, and to mirror and reflect to them how amazing they are and how extraordinary and unique they are, and that whatever it is they think they need, it can be achieved because of who and what they are. It's kind of like what Mr. Rogers used to get across to everybody. Nobody is more wonderfully able to know the great and magnificent self that each one is, except the person themselves. So I believe the work remains with each and every one of us, and whatever it takes for us to support that, for me to be able to support the group that's around me to be the best of themselves, and have them support me in being the best of myself. And I think it's always finding the best way to mirror that. How do we mirror that? In the face of challenges and in the face of clashing personalities and egos and so on, which is part of the three-dimensional planet Earth living, to do that in that circumstance, especially with the ones who are close to us. Because I think if we get it, if we're able to do that and mirror and reflect, only that sense of, I know who you are. And the song we sing, I'm here to remind you of your magnificence. I take that very seriously. And so in order for me to remind you of your magnificence, I have to have first recognized my own. And for me to recognize that, I need to be in, I don't know about anybody else, but I need to be in spiritual practice every day of my life so that I don't forget who I am and what I'm about and what I signed up for and what my calling is and how best to live that calling. Now, do I fail? All the time, but I get back up on my horse very quickly again and remind myself that, you know, we learn through our mistakes. And if we keep making the same mistake, then there's something strange happening here. It needs to be adjusted. But it's okay to make new mistakes and learn from them and go forward. So it's honoring each individual one of us wherever we are. It's being present enough to be able to honor the individual person wherever we are. And I think myself that science of mind and spirit, and we mustn't forget the and spirit, is a wonderful, wonderful springboard for that to happen. And as I say, I haven't found anything better in the world for me to move out of this into, or from this into. This is it so far for me. And so I very much value all that I have gained and learned from being a participant in this organization. And I would just say to everybody, just be yourself, but be your best self. And whatever that takes, then be willing to commit to that, whatever that takes. And above all else, I've learned this in life. Never take criticism personally, and never take praise seriously, because that can really trip us up if we do either of those things. But just to be knowing that when I'm assisting and supporting good in the world, it's only because I've been able to get out of my own way and allow spirit to come through. That's all. It's just learning that. Get out of your own way and let spirit come through. So if anything, it would be a lovely thing to think that we could help people to free themselves from fear. Mm-hmm. Because fear is the kicker, you know, in all of us. And if we could just learn to handle that in ourselves, and maybe together handle it in ourselves, and then assistance and support others to do that. Because really and truly, it's only fear-filled and hurting people that hurt other people. And so if we could do that, how wonderful that would be. Because at the moment, there's this mild grade of fear across the board, not only in our own country, but throughout the world. This anxiety, this fear, because everything is so uncertain. See, what we don't know is that everything has always been so uncertain, but really it's in our face at the moment. Mm-hmm. Everything is very uncertain. So this beautiful teaching has so very much to bring to the world as gift. And I am so honored to be part of this group, to be part of the people I know who are out there endeavoring to do all they can, you know, to help assist and support people to come home to themselves. Because at the end of the day, that's all it's about. And, you know, I'm not big on pointing out people's, you know, like in the way I grew up and the church I grew up in was, you know, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner, and you're a sinner, and you could be smited and all of that stuff. I think everybody knows their sins. They don't have to be pointed out to them. Their mistakes are very clear. But I think what people don't know is the wonderful good that they are. And what people don't know is how awesome they are. What people don't know and don't trust and don't even recognize is the unique perfection of each one. And I think that's what we're here to do, to mirror and reflect that. But not in a, you know, in a rose-colored glass way. Not at all, but just be authentic. It's a beautiful thing to come across an authentic person in the world. So I'm just saying, do the best you can. That's all any of us can do, and I think that's more than enough. And in the doing the best that we can do, we find eventually we're being our best selves. And that's what it's about, nobody else basically except me. And if I take care of that, and if I become my authentic self, if I can see the presence and the power of spirit within me, it's so very easy to see it in everything and everyone else. It's very easy because I can only see what I am. I can only see who I am. I can only meet who I am wherever I am. So the spiritual practice is a worthy, worthy, worthy endeavor. And I think if anything has to fall by the wayside in the day, it ought not to be that. And it's something that I aspire to. Something that I aspire to be in that practice consciously as much as possible. And you know, when that happens, it's the most sweetest, beautiful, wonderful thing, is it not? Is it not? Everything in the world is just glorious when spirit and ourselves become that one sense and sensibility.
Thank you for being here and part of this.
It's my honor. And you know what? You, good doctor, inspire me. And as I've said, I love the way you do what you do. You do it so graciously and so quietly. And thank you for that. For all of your whole life has been committed to this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teaching of science of mind and spirit. So thank you, my dear. Appreciate it. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Marilyn Leo. I am the founder of the Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation. I trust that you have enjoyed this interview, which is part of the Wise Sage project of the archives. It is a gift of love, as is the foundation itself, and depends entirely on your generosity. We appreciate your donation in support of the preservation and availability of our science and mind history.